it doesn't hurt when you've got two other candidates that are throwing mud. You know, I think I still have mud on my boots from Miles City, but we walked through the mud, but we haven't played it. And that has been something that's resonated with a lot of people too. And I heard them loud and clear when I was campaigning and Gianforte versus Quist special election was going on, where they said, if you do negative campaigning, we're done. You know, we expect more out of you. And I think we've held up that commitment to always drive this campaign based on the issues, right? And again, push forward with a positive plan. So when we talk about anti-establishment, I think almost all of you have heard the story, but I will repeat it just for one or two that haven't. The big part of trying to fix our government is to try to make sure that all the parts work together. And in order to get the bureaucracies to behave, they need to have oversight by the legislative branch. And there needs to, all three branches have to be co-equal in their balance. And what we see right now is the legislative branch isn't working, and it's not working in the Senate. It's because a handful of people have concentrated the power of all the senators and all the chairmen of the committees up into the upper echelon of 5 people. Originally it was Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell and a couple others. Now it's Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. And what they've done is they've been able to keep the Senate out of regular order. They've been able to do all of their deals behind closed doors in the dark of night. And most recently, probably the best example was our omnibus bill for our budget, which, while holding our government ransom, you know, Mitch McConnell and Schumer, they did something. They created a 2,000-page budget bill, an omnibus bill. They created it in the dark of night. It's 1.3 trillion, maybe even up to 2.5 trillion when it's all said and done. And it's going to affect the future of our children, right? We are going to reap the benefits of that money while someone else has to be held for the bill. And for most of us, that does not make sense. It doesn't make, that's no common sense. And we know that's just plain wrong. It's absolutely wrong, and we have to stop this philosophy of benefiting today and letting someone else pay for it tomorrow, right? So I pointed that out, that Mitch McConnell has got to be repealed and replaced before we can move on in the Senate and get it back to order. That is the reason why we were called the anti-establishment group. The other part that we're talking about, or as an anti-establishment candidate, the other part is the fact that we won't take their money. That we won't take their money. And right now I'm very happy to see that one of the groups that I talk to is putting a lot of money into this campaign for another contender. And I'm fortunate to say I don't like their message. And I don't approve of the way that they're playing in this election. It's not their election, you know, but they are bullying not only our candidates, but they're bullying the Montana people with the extensive amount of money of $1.6 million already brought in by one group. So I'm just, you know, I'm actually relieved that I was told in the military to make sure you had a decision of whether you wanted to be someone or do something, and made that decision to want to always do something. So when it was time, when they offered the money, it was easy to say no and walk away and not regret it, and especially right now. While they're throwing some thick mud, right? It's smelly mud. I'm just thankful that I'm not a part of that. The issues, again, you know, to just quickly go over it, and then I'll open up to any final questions in my ask. But we win this election specifically by making sure that John Tester has to account for his vote and where he stands on all the issues. But we also have to be able to offer a better alternative. And we need to talk about what our plan is. And that's simple, but it's not easy. So number one, and I've told people, and it always work, is our public lands. We have to be able to hold John accountable for his statements that he said that how he's protecting our lands and keeping the lands open to us. You know, but yet at the same time as he says he's opening up our lands and he's protecting that access, 20,000 miles of federal public land roads in Montana alone have been closed during his tenure as the senator. Right? He needs to account for that view that seems to be hypocritical to what he says to what has actually happened while he has been our senator and protecting our public lands in Montana. Number two, we also need to talk about, and we need to regain the message from the Republican Party that yes, we believe in public lands. It's a property right owned in common by all of us. But like any property right, we want to nurture it, we want to manage it, we want to make it better. And that means, and we want to get the most out of that property right. So that's not just hunting, fishing, and hiking. That means grazing it. That means timber harvest. It means extracting the minerals and doing all of that in a sustainable, safe way that protects that same property right for the future, for our future generations, so they can enjoy it as well to the same degree. So we really need to make that message, and we, as Republicans, we've been put on our rear end on that. Number two, once we have people talking about a property right, then we go to the property right of water. And I think everyone here has heard me talk about the fact that the Salish-Kootenai Water Compact is the single issue, I believe, that will decide whether or not Jon Tester stays. It will be a referendum on two opposing views that are very, very different. One, our view that the water belongs to the people of Montana, and it's a property right that should never be given to a third party without remuneration or through the due process of law. And the way it was taken from us was government plunder. It was, and we could go through a number of those details. But I've gone from Richland County and Sidney, Montana, all the way through Sanders County over here in Thompson Falls, and all the counties in between. This issue resonates with everybody. It crosses party lines. And it's a winning issue. Because again, Jon Tester is a gentleman who is all for the water compact. He's all for the idea of giving a third party, a Native American tribe of 5,000 people, the water to all of western Montana, due to a new unprecedented right of Aboriginal water rights. Right? And they understand the repercussions that how it means if we give the water of western Montana to them, what it means where the Crow tribe demand their precedent, or the Blackfoot demand their precedent, and therefore none of the water belongs to the state of Montana or to us people, and we can just rip that page out of our Montana Constitution, telling us that the water belongs to us, and just throw it away, right? So that is an issue that crosses party lines, and we have brought up that knowledge. If there's one thing we've done in this campaign, really educate the public, and now, especially in central and eastern Montana, they're concerned about this issue, and they want to know more. So, and I think it's the best way to roll into a general campaign and educate the people, communicate where we need to go with this, and how we do need to acknowledge that this third party does have a water right on tribal lands, but it should be no different than any of the compacts that belong to the other tribes. And it should always be water that the tribes need to respect the private property rights and the water rights of non-Native American people on the reservation, like all the other tribal compacts do. And that finally, our water court, the Montana Water Court, will continue to be the ultimate adjudicator and the most supreme adjudicator of water rights in Montana, bar none. And we need to make sure. And that, again, all resounds with the people. It's a sense of fairness. It's a sense of not choosing winners or losers. It's a giving everybody an equal opportunity at a level playing field. And I think that's what appeals to people as well. Thank you. We also know that we go into what's happening with our healthcare system and with the Veterans Administration and what's going on with healthcare for our vets. And I guess, as a doctor, we can talk about many issues on what we can do to fix the healthcare system, but one that is really resonating across our state with everybody, again, crosses party lines, is the idea of having a health savings account that is not connected to a high deductible insurance, but is one that all of us can participate in, that we can participate in as an individual or as a family. We can start it with our children for when they're young. We can put money into that tax-free. that money can be used for our health care, including paying for our health care premiums, tax-free. Right? So as much money as you put into that, you can use for your premiums. And it's not the government who says you can only see a medical doctor. Right? If you want to see an allopathic, or if you want to see a naturopathic doctor, or a chiropractor, or a craniosacral specialist, you know what? You determine how you're going to treat your health, or how you're going to take care of your health, who your provider will be, and through what modality, and that you are the final determination of how that money's spent. Right? That is a very powerful statement. It's a very simple vehicle. It's created. We just need to be able to expand that vehicle, the health savings account, to be able to do those additional activities. Right? And finally, on that issue of healthcare, we need to quit. We need to discontinue the idea of crony capitalism. Right? It's across the board in so many different fields, but we see it here, especially in healthcare, where the government picks winners and losers. The government, through regulations, have decided that doctors and eventually dentists and therapists and everybody else will not be able to have their own private practice. I mean, it's already designed in Obamacare that the idea of free market and the idea of small business being accomplished by physicians and dentists and therapists will go away by 2025 and beyond, right? Picking winners and losers. So, crony capitalism. We need to make that go away. We start also where we need to really make sure this happens. First and foremost, though, is with our pharmaceutical industries, where we're watching the price of pharmaceutical drugs go up and up and up, 5 to 18% per year. You know, we really do have to stop that. What we needed to make sure we do is that drugs that are off of their patent need to be made generic, and we need to change the rules so it's easier to do so, because unfortunately through the Obama administration they've tied up the avenues for making drugs generic in a way that the most expensive drugs continue to be even more expensive and act as a brand name drug pretty much in perpetuity. And I tell people, as your U.S. Senator, I will be one who will support and champion what's called the CREATES Act, which takes down those barriers of regulations. So those very expensive drugs that cost $30,000, $40,000 a year for rheumatoid to feel normal will become affordable and be only maybe $3,000 to $5,000 or $7,000 a year, something that would be affordable for them. And that goes on for cancer drugs, and that goes on for so many other things for us. So we do need to bring down crony capitalism. And then for the VA, and I just was talking with a veteran again yesterday, who is a veteran doctor who told me, he said, Doc, he says, you know what, I know it, the culture has to change. And he's currently here in Montana practicing, and he's being told, Doc, I only work. I work 1 day a week, and I do 35% of the work. 1 day a week compared to the 5 other doctors that are working, and I do 35% of the work, and I'm told that I'm pushing him too hard. He says, I'm only going at the same pace that I do in my regular practice. You know, I want to give to the veterans. I took 1 day a week to work for the Veterans Administration, and they want me to slow down, right? So the culture needs to be changed. Then what we have to do is refocus the mission so that the VA is the best vehicle, the very best organization to take care of wartime and service-related injuries, illnesses, and disabilities. Bar none. If you have post-traumatic stress syndrome, you should be able to see a psychiatrist here in Montana and not have to go to Sheridan, Wyoming. Right? And it should be one that you're proud of, and it should be the best expert on post-traumatic stress syndrome. If you have lost both your legs and an arm, you should have the best therapists and the best artificial limb makers that ever can produce and create in our country. So that you know, if you're saying, I'm at the VA, you know that there's no better place to go. There will be no better place. But if you're getting your health care for bread and butter issues, high blood pressure, for your cholesterol, or for a woman vet who just wants her annual GYN exam, she should not have to wait 3 years. She should be able, and we should all drive that kind of care into the local community, back where it's local access, and make sure that it's a quick access. And And that only just takes care of the community as well. And then the community can give back to the vets and the vets can get their care. It's a win-win situation. Okay. So these are the issues, and we can go on and on and on about them. But I see that everybody's finished their lunch. Everybody's finished their lunch. So here's my big ask that I've got for you. For me, is that again, don't stop. This is actually the time for you to be saying, hey, I've heard of Dr. Olszewski. You know what? He's my friend. I've seen him work at so many levels. He does serve, and he serves our community. And I think he will do the same up there. And also, he's not Washington's guy. He didn't take their money. He's been running this campaign on an all Montana money campaign. And you know what? It shows in the way he acts. It shows in his message. And and that's the kind of message and that's the kind of representation we want when someone leaves our state and goes to Washington, D.C.